Can Section 11 of the Constitution and the death penalty coexist simultaneously?
It cannot, Ashraf, and I think this is precisely why we needed a case like the Mokhanyana case to actually have the Constitutional Court clarify once and for all that the right to life is inconsistent with the death penalty. But perhaps I can take it further to beyond the South African borders and talk about the African Commission on Human and People's Rights, which has released a resolution in 2022, it's Resolution 544, which literally says that the death penalty and the prohibition of torture and cruel and inhuman and degrading punishment must be stopped in all of Africa. So pointedly to your question, of course the death penalty is inconsistent with the right to life. But I think it's important to also understand, and I've been listening to your guest, Professor Matlangana, earlier, who was talking fundamentally about the right to life, saying that it's beyond just protecting life. It's actually about ensuring that there are safeguards and ensuring that the state has good mechanisms that protect this right to life for all people concerned.
Yeah. I guess on the flip side, and if you've been listening, you probably heard some of the reaction to some of the conversations we've been having, where people are saying, look, from the perspective of the right to life, I can, for example, become a victim of, have my right to life and dignity be infringed upon, but the perpetrators, when they are found guilty, does not. And is that just, broadly speaking, within a South African context? How would you sort of lay that out for the ordinary South African that perhaps holds that view?
I think this is something that I often argue about, that society reaches for extreme solutions when the everyday systems meant to guarantee safety stop functioning. So what this means, Ashraf, is that the people are not particularly mad at the fact that there is crime. They are mad at the fact that policing has failed. They are mad at the fact that there's a collapse in service delivery. They are mad at the fact that there's delays in the court systems. They are basically mad at the entire criminal justice system. So what this means is that we as the people need to start holding our government to account, to say, and I think one of your listeners sent a voice note where they're talking about the prison system itself. We need to be asking questions about whether or not our correctional services are doing what they're meant to do, which is correct. Because it's never about punishing people. It's never only about punishing people. I mean, it's also about making sure that we're rehabilitating these people, because we cannot have a situation where people go to prison and then they come up and they are worse than when they went in. Because we have seen in many instances that people go into our prison systems and then they come out worse because of whatever happens in there, whether it's gangsterism or whatnot. So there needs to be a question about whether or not our criminal justice system as a whole is holistic and fit for purpose. And what this means is that we are starting at the very beginning of life. We're looking at whether or not we've got systems in place that are training our children to grow up and avoid doing crime. Because remember, Ashraf, when we're looking at the criminal justice system, it should not just be about rehabilitating people who've offended. It should also be about preventing crime. What are we doing as a community? What are we doing as society to ensure that our children are growing up to stay away and deviate from doing crime, so that even if they do commit crimes, we've got systems in place that are correcting them. But also, I think fundamentally it's the problem of the systems that are not functioning well. And when the systems are not functioning well, societies will always reach for the extremes.
Yeah. I guess, broadly speaking, is it then justifiable that people take or seek those extreme, solutions, considering the lived reality that South Africans experience on a daily basis, or is it a matter of re-examining the way, those, call it injustices, or essentially should be policed, broadly speaking?
I think it's human nature, Ashraf. I mean, I obviously agree with everyone who has those sort of sentiments. I mean, you and I would agree that if you were to be experiencing a level of crime, at some point you would want to, take matters into your own hand. Mm-hmm. That's why we often have mob justice. And a colleague of mine released a book recently, I'm forgetting the name, but he was basically looking at case studies in South Africa where we have seen mob justice, where you have had people being murdered at the hands of society because they were trying to say we have had enough of the crime of these people. But I think the problem with that, Ashraf, you and I will agree, that you might find yourself in a situation where you take matters into your own hand and you find that the people that have been held accountable are the wrong people, or maybe even that the matters into the own hands that have been taken are disproportional to the crime that has been committed. So we must avoid a situation like that. This is why we need a very strong criminal justice system that will be proportional and fit for purpose. And that is why, obviously, I'm calling for us to be holding our elected officials accountable to say, what are we doing to ensure that the taxpayers' money that is going into our correctional services facilities and the system as a whole is actually fit for purpose, is doing what it's supposed to be doing. I think someone was saying, also one of your listeners, that these people that go into prison, they're being taken care of, they're being fed. Yes, they have the right to dignity, that must happen. But the question then begs, all of this taxpayers' money that goes into the correctional services facilities, are they doing what they need to be doing? Which is rehabilitating these people so that when they finish their sentences, they're able to reintegrate into society and contribute back into society, and not just being sent there to be punished, which in fact oftentimes makes them worse than they were when they were going in. So I think it's a broader conversation about ensuring that our criminal justice system is fit for purpose so that people have the faith and have the trust that the system is going to take care of them once they have offended.
I think another part of this particular conversation that definitely must not be lost is, and as we've seen in other countries, and we continue to see, cases here in South Africa in the past and in other countries around the world, cases in which, a person may be innocent, but they are convicted of a crime and are sentenced to death, and only later on is it learned, or perhaps that evidence becomes, comes to light, essentially exonerating them. But by then, essentially an injustice has been done and there's no way to correct that.
And this is why you've got Section 35, which is the right to a fair trial, right? Because our justice system is not error-free. And if you now juxtapose that, the death penalty is finite. Once you are killed, you are killed. We cannot resuscitate you and say, well, it was an error. And the reason why I agree very much with the Makwanyama case of the Constitutional Court in 95 is precisely that point, to say our system is not error-free, so let us allow for a system where people can appeal. Obviously, someone who has been a victim of crime will think, this is just another one of the famous Stalingrad stands where people are going to delay justice. But I think we need to get to a point where people have enough faith in our system to know that even though there are appeal processes, we know that the system is going to do the right thing so that we avoid people wanting to push for the extremes.
Where to from here? Where do we take this conversation from here, Melusi?
I think it's a question for you and I and the listener together, because we cannot rely on lawyers alone. We cannot rely on the police alone, and we cannot rely on our government ministers alone. I think civil society, I think the government, I think society, communities, grassroots activists, we all need to come together. I think for me, what's fundamentally important is looking at what are we doing at early childhood development. Because the big question we should be asking is, why is there so much crime in our land? Why is there so much crime in Africa? Why are young people committing crime? Is it a question of people being unemployed? Is it a question of people seeing that the quickest way for economic gain is crime? We need to go back to our early childhood development to say, what are we doing to ensure that our children are growing up in a way that they will know right from wrong, and they will know that even if, of course, they do make the mistake of doing the wrong thing, there is a criminal justice system in place that is going to hold them accountable, and not only for punishment purposes, but also for rehabilitation, so that we're creating a society that is going to work for our future generations. But fundamentally, I think it's all up to us as society to say, how are we working together to contribute towards a conversation that builds to early childhood development that is fit for purpose, and the criminal justice system that is fit for purpose.